Welcome to my lesson on standard deviation. Today I'm going to do this question. If you take a quick read through, we're going to go ahead and answer question 1a. So how do we calculate mean and standard deviation given this type of group data? Typically what you need to do is you need to have a column for f. You need to have a column for f, for x, for fx, for fx squared. So let's go ahead and draw ourselves a table. As you can see, it's a very simple one. It doesn't have to be very elaborate. So for f, let's copy down the values, 50, 2. Now what do we choose for x? What we need to do is we need to take 0 plus 19, and then we're going to divide this by 2. So if we can go ahead and use our calculator, and then do the same for all the remaining values. Okay, and then now in order to get fx, what fx means is to take f times x. So we're going to take 50 times 9.5, and that's going to give us 475, and so on and so forth. However, a good habit is to take f times x, and then what is fx squared? Fx squared is f times x times x. So since we already have the value of fx, now what we have to do is just multiply 475 multiplied by 9.5 again, and that would give us fx squared. So it's actually takes less effort when you multiply in this direction. So for the next line, we're going to take 20 times 29.5, which is 590, and then we're going to take 590 multiplied by 29.5 again. So the answer is 17405. Okay, I'm going to give you some time to go ahead and fill up the rest of the information. Right, so all this information is done. Now what we want to do is we want to find out other information, the summation. So if you know the formula for mean is given by the notation x bar. X bar is the summation of fx over the summation of f. Okay, so what we need is we need the summation. So summation is a fancy word for sum, which means to add up everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to add up the fx column. So this will give us the summation of fx. And then what you do is you basically add the values downwards. So 475 plus 590 plus 247.5 plus 695 plus 179. And that would give us 2186.5. And then we're going to add summation of f. Summation of f is not given to us in the question. Okay, so we got to find it as well. 50, 20, 5, 10, and 2. And that's 87 customers. So what that means is that there are 87 customers that visited the first outlet. Okay, so let's find our mean. Mean is given by this formula. So substitute the values in, press the calculator, and give your answer. And you notice this is not a nice value, so let's round it off to 3 significant figures because there was no accuracy specified. And what this means is, it means that the average or the average age of the customer who visits outlet 1 is 25.1 years old, right? Okay, then how do we calculate what's the value of SD? So SD is given by this formula, which is summation of fx squared over summation of f minus mean squared. And then we square root the whole thing. So we also need to go and find out the summation of fx squared column. So let's go ahead and find that value. 9813.1.75. Okay, so put it into the formula. 98131.75 over 87 minus the value of our mean square. Please use more than 3SF. So let's use the one with at least 5SF, 218 square. And then we get the square root of this. If I were to press this into the calculator, My answer is 22.278. And same thing, let's round this off to 3SF. Okay, so we have done mean and SD. This is a old method where no calculator, where you're not supposed to use the standard deviation function in your calculator. For questions like these, the mark weightage is 1 mark for your mean and then 2 marks for your standard deviation. Okay, so let's pause this recording. So I want to show you how to use a calculator to calculate mean and SD using purely the calculator. You use the calculator if for the question they only give you 1 mark for mean and 1 mark for standard deviation. Okay, so when it's 1 mark for mean and 1 mark for standard deviation, then you will use the calculator straight away. Please go ahead and look at the video.
So first you set your calculator to statistic. You choose your variable. And since there's no frequency, you turn it on.
5 minutes will be 1 hour and 5 minutes.
Then after that you sub in your
05.
f and x.
You must know which one is f and x properly, huh? Okay.
Plus 5.
So your x will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Not 40.
And your frequency would be 5, 8, 6.
Okay, you can draw the clock.
After putting in,
you move it. After that you press your option. Choose variable calculator. There you go.
okay, the first one is mean, the second last one is your SD.
Then what we're going to do is we're going to answer the next part to this question. They tell us that the average age of the customers in the second outlet is younger. So, and that the spread is wider than those in the first outlet. So the value of X for mean in the second outlet so what they want is an inequality to satisfy this condition. So since the average age for the customers in the second outlet are younger than those in the first outlet, it must then mean that X must be less than 25.1 years old. Okay, for a wider spread, so the larger the SD, the wider the spread. The larger the SD, the larger the spread. So therefore the SD in the second outlet, since it has a wider spread than the SD in the first outlet, therefore Y must be greater than 22.3. Okay, so that's the answers for this question. See you back for the next question.